The bells of Black Hollow. In the snow-drenched village of Black Hollow, nestled deep within the pine forests of northern Maine, Christmas was sacred. Every December, the townsfolk gathered in the square to light the ancient bell tower, a relic from the 1700s, and ring in the season with carols and cheer. But beneath the holly and twinkling lights, something waited. Something old. Something hungry. 17-year-old Clara Whitmore awoke on December 1st to find a note on her doorstep. It was written in red ink, jagged and uneven. The bellkeeper returns. Do not ring the tower. Do not sing. Her father, Sheriff Whitmore, dismissed it as a prank. But Clara felt it, something watching her from the woods. Something that moved when the snow fell hardest. By December 3rd, strange packages began appearing on doorsteps. Wrapped in parchment and tied with sinew, each box contained a single item: a child's tooth, a dead bird, a piece of coal soaked in blood. The elders paled. They remembered the stories, whispers from long ago, when the wind howled and the power flickered. Elias Grinwald, the bellkeeper, had been executed on Christmas Eve, 1743, for witchcraft and child sacrifice. Before he died, he vowed to return every 100 years to collect what was owed. This year marked 3 centuries. On December 21st, the bell rang. No one had touched it. It tolled once at midnight, echoing through the valley like a death knell. The sound was wrong, too deep, too wet, like something being dragged through mud. By morning, Clara's best friend Jonah was gone. His house was locked from the inside. His bed was soaked in pine needles. Sheriff Whitmore organized a search party, but the woods were hostile. Compass needles spun wildly. Phones died. And the snow whispered. Clara, drawn by a dream of the bell tower bleeding, climbed its steps alone. Inside, she found a spiral staircase descending into the earth. It hadn't been there before. The air grew colder as she descended. At the bottom was a chamber lit by flickering candles. In the center stood a tree, black, leafless, and strung with ornaments made of bone. Beneath it knelt Elias Grinwald. He was not a ghost. He was flesh, pale, stretched, and stitched together with sinew. His eyes were coal. His beard was made of pine needles. He turned to Clara and smiled with teeth like icicles. You rang the bell, child. Now the debt must be paid. Clara tried to run, but the roots of the tree wrapped around her ankles. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the earth. Elias whispered a curse, and the ornaments began to twitch. They were not ornaments. They were children. Sheriff Whitmore found the tower empty. Clara was gone. So was Jonah. So were 5 other children. The town's elders gathered and confessed the truth. Every 100 years, the bell must not ring. If it does, Elias returns to collect 7 souls, 1 for each day leading to Christmas. They had failed. On Christmas Eve, the bell rang 7 times. The snow turned red. The tower collapsed. And the forest grew silent. Black Hollow no longer celebrates Christmas. The town square is empty. The houses are dark. The bell tower is gone, but sometimes, on windless nights, the sound of bells can still be heard. Clara's mother swears she saw her daughter in the woods last week, her eyes black as coal, her mouth stitched shut, her hands dripping with pine sap. She was hanging ornaments on a tree. They were twitching. The Red Snowfall. The first red snow fell on December 13th. It wasn't blood. Not exactly. It was snow, but tinged with something metallic, something wrong. It melted into crimson puddles that stained boots and sidewalks. The town of Dunbridge, Vermont, tried to ignore it. They always did. But this year, the snow didn't stop. By December 15th, the local church bells rang on their own. No one had touched them. The pastor, Father Malloy, found the bell rope frayed and soaked in red. He stopped ringing it after that. On December 16th, every child in town received a letter. No postage. No return address. Just a single sheet of parchment, folded neatly, tucked into their beds or backpacks. It read. Parents dismissed it as a prank. But the children didn't. They began to change. They stopped speaking. They stopped eating. They began to hum. A low, tuneless hum that vibrated through walls and made pets howl. By December 18th, the snow was falling in thick red sheets. The sky was gray, but the flakes glowed faintly, like embers. The mayor declared a state of emergency. No one left town. No one came in. And the children kept humming. On December 20th, the first child vanished. Her name was Lily Hart. 7 years old. Her bedroom window was open, though the snow had sealed it shut the night before. Her bed was empty, her pillow soaked in red. Her parents found a trail of footprints leading into the woods. Bare feet. No return. By December 21st, 12 children were gone. The town gathered in the church, desperate for answers. Father Malloy read from the old texts, forgotten pages from the town's founding. He spoke of a ritual, a pact made long ago. Dunbridge had been built on cursed land. In 1799, the founders had struck a deal with something beneath the earth. A promise, prosperity, peace, and protection, in exchange for silence. Every 100 years, the feast of the forgotten must be held. 7 children. One for each day leading to Christmas. The town had forgotten. The earth had not. On December 22nd, the snow turned black. It fell in slow spirals, thick and oily. It didn't melt. It hissed. The humming grew louder. The remaining children began to speak, but not in English. Their voices were guttural, ancient, layered. They spoke in tongues no one recognized, and their eyes turned glassy and red. Parents tried to restrain them. They couldn't. The children moved as one. They walked the streets in silence, barefoot, dressed in red pajamas. They stared at the bell tower. They stared at the woods. They stared at the ground. On December 23rd, the town tried to flee. They packed cars, loaded trucks, begged for help. But the roads were gone. Not blocked. Gone. Where pavement had been, there was only snow. Endless snow. No signs. No lines. No direction. Just red and black, stretching into nothing. The town was sealed. And the feast was near. On December 24th, the final child vanished. His name was Caleb Moore. 10 years old. He had been tied to his bed, guarded by 3 adults. At midnight, the lights went out. The candles died. The humming stopped. When the lights returned, Caleb was gone. The ropes were still tied. The adults were asleep. The window was closed. But the footprints were there. 7 trails. All leading to the woods. Father Malloy led a group into the forest. They followed the trails, deeper than they'd ever gone. The trees grew twisted. The snow hissed louder. The air smelled of rust and rot. They found the clearing at 3 a.m. It was circular, perfectly carved into the earth. In the center stood a tree, black, leafless, pulsing. Around it stood the children. They were not children anymore. Their skin was pale and cracked. Their eyes glowed red. Their mouths were stitched shut with pine needles. They held hands and swayed. Above them, hanging from the tree, were ornaments. They were not ornaments. They were hearts. 7 of them. Still beating. Father Malloy screamed. The tree opened. It split down the center, revealing a mouth, wide, wet, filled with teeth like icicles. It spoke without sound. It sang without melody. The children stepped forward. One by one, they were swallowed. The tree closed. The snow stopped. The sky cleared. The town of Dunbridge was silent. On Christmas morning, the sun rose red. The roads returned. The bells rang. And every home found a gift on their doorstep. Wrapped in red cloth. Inside, a single tooth. Still warm. The 13th Sleigh. In the remote village of Gren's Hollow, nestled between the frost-bitten peaks of the Carpathians, Christmas was not celebrated with joy, but with fear. Every December, the villagers locked their doors, shuttered their windows, and whispered prayers to the mountain. They did not speak of Santa Claus. They spoke of the 13th sleigh. December 1st, the first omen. It began with the wind. Not the usual winter gusts, but a low, moaning wind that carried the scent of iron and ash. It blew only at night, and only from the north, where the mountains stood like a broken tooth against the sky. Children began to dream of antlers. Not reindeer. Not deer. Antlers made of bone. Twisted. Screaming. By morning, they woke with blood on their pillows and frost on their fingertips. December 3rd, the forgotten legend. Elder Marek, the last surviving folklorist in Gren's Hollow, gathered the villagers in the chapel. He spoke of an ancient pact, older than Christendom, older than the mountain itself. Long ago, 13 sleighs rode through the sky each winter solstice. 12 bore gifts and light. The 13th bore something else. It was driven by a figure known only as the Hollow Saint. Not Santa. Not Saint Nicholas. This one wore robes of stitched skin and a crown of broken teeth. His sleigh was pulled not by reindeer, but by children, bound, blindfolded, and singing. Every 100 years, the 13th sleigh returned. And this year, was the 100th. December 6th, the bells of bone. The village bell tower rang at midnight. No one had touched it. The sound was wrong, dry, brittle, like bones snapping in rhythm. The snow turned gray. The stars vanished. Father Thomas found the bell rope replaced with a spine. The church doors were sealed shut with wax. Inside, the altar was covered in hoofprints. December 10th, the disappearances. Children began to vanish. Not all at once. One by one. Each night, a child would be tucked into bed. Each morning, the bed would be empty. No footprints. No broken windows. Just a single item left behind. A toy carved from bone. Always a sleigh. Always with 13 seats. December 13th, the Feast of Teeth. The villagers found a trail in the snow, leading into the forest. It was not made by feet or hooves, but by dragging bodies. At the end of the trail stood a tree. It was not a pine. It was made of teeth. Human teeth. Milk teeth. Baby teeth. Hung like ornaments. Glowing faintly. At its base sat a book. Bound in skin. Written in blood. It told the story of the Hollow Saint. How he was cast out by the 12 for feeding on the souls of children. How he vowed to return every century to reclaim his sleigh. How he would not stop until 13 children pulled him through the sky once more. December 20th, the red sky. The sky turned crimson. Snow fell in flakes shaped like molars. The villagers tried to flee, but the roads were gone. Not buried. Gone. Where the forest had stood, there was now a vast plain of bone-white ice. In the distance, they saw it. A sleigh. Massive. Black. Breathing. It pulsed with light from within, red, like a furnace. And it moved. Not on runners. On limbs. December 23rd, the choir of the lost. The sleigh reached the village. It did not crash through homes. It did not burn. It sang. A chorus of children's voices, layered and distorted, echoed through the streets. The song had no melody, no rhythm, just names. Every child who had vanished. Their names repeated, over and over, until the villagers could no longer speak. Their tongues turned to ash. Their eyes bled. Their memories unraveled. December 24th, the final ride. At midnight, the sleigh opened. Inside sat the hollow saint. He had no face. Just a void. He raised one hand, and the remaining children walked forward. They did not cry. They did not resist. They climbed into the sleigh. 13 seats. 13 children. The sleigh rose into the sky. The stars returned. The snow turned white. And the village of Gren's Hollow was erased. No maps show it. No records mention it. But sometimes, on Christmas Eve, if the wind is right and the snow tastes of iron, you can hear the sleigh bells. 13 of them. And if you listen too long, you'll hear your name. The Birchwife's Cradle. The village of Vranov. In the shadow of the Umava forest, where the Czech Republic meets the German border, lies the forgotten village of Vranov. It doesn't appear on modern maps. The last census was taken in 1938. Since then, no one has officially lived there. But the villagers never left. They just stopped being people. 2. The First Frost. December 5, 2023. A team of 4 researchers from Prague University arrived in the region to document pre-Christian winter rituals. Led by Dr. Lenka Havel, an expert in Slavic folklore, the group included her assistant Thomas, a linguist named Petra, and a graduate student named Emil. They were drawn by rumors of a surviving pagan rite known as the Cradle of the Birchwife. Locals in nearby towns refused to speak of it. One old man spat on the ground when asked. Another crossed himself and muttered, "She sings in the trees. Don't listen." The team laughed it off. They didn't laugh for long. 3. The Cradle. On December 6th, they reached Vranov. The village was intact, stone cottages, a crumbling chapel, and a central square with a dry fountain. Snow blanketed everything, but there were no footprints. No signs of life. Yet smoke curled from chimneys. Inside the homes, tables were set for meals. Fires burned low in hearths. Dolls sat in cribs. But no people. Only silence. And birch branches. Bundles of them, tied with red twine, hung from every doorway. Petra, flipping through her notes, whispered, "Birch is sacred to the Slavic goddess Moana. Death and winter." That night, they camped in the chapel. At midnight, they heard it. A lullaby. Sung in a voice like wind through dead leaves. Lenka translated the words. 4. The First Dream. Thomas was the first to dream. He saw a woman, tall, thin, her skin bark white and flaking. Her hair was moss. Her eyes were hollow. She stood over a cradle made of ribs and antlers. Inside it, a baby with no face. When he woke, his hands were covered in sap. And his fingernails were gone. The Ritual. On December 7th, they found the altar. Deep in the woods, beneath a ring of birch trees, stood a stone slab. Carved into it were 13 names, children, all under 10. The last name was dated 1923. Exactly 100 years ago. Petra found a journal in the chapel. It belonged to Father Yanek, the last priest of Vranov. His final entry read, "That night, Emil vanished. His sleeping bag was full of birch leaves. His boots were filled with blood." 6. The Cradle Unearthed. On December 8th, the snow turned gray. Thomas and Petra followed a trail of broken branches into the woods. They found a clearing where the snow had melted in a perfect circle. In the center, the cradle. It was real. Made of bone and wood, bound with sinew. It rocked gently, though there was no wind. Inside it, Emil's eyes. Still blinking. Petra screamed. The tree screamed back. 7. The Birch Wife. That night, Lenka stayed awake. She heard the lullaby again, closer now. She saw her. The Birch Wife. She moved like a marionette, joints cracking, limbs too long. Her mouth opened sideways. Her voice was 1,000 whispers. Lenka couldn't move. The Birch Wife leaned close and whispered. Lenka understood. The cradle must be filled. Or the forest would take more. 8. The Pact. December 9th. Petra was gone. Only Thomas and Lenka remained. They found Petra's body hanging from a birch tree, her limbs twisted into the shape of a cradle. Thomas broke. He ran into the woods, screaming Emil's name. Lenka followed the lullaby. It led her to the altar. The cradle was full. 13 children. Some old. Some new. Some still breathing. The Birch Wife stood behind it. She smiled. Lenka fell to her knees. I'll give you more, she whispered. Just let me go. The Birch Wife nodded. Lenka woke in the snow. Alone. 9. 1 year later. December 2024. Lenka returned to Prague. She never spoke of Vranov. But she began to write letters. To orphanages. To shelters. To hospitals. She offered research grants. Field trips. Winter retreats. 13 children. Every year. The cradle must be filled. Or the Birch Wife will come again. And this time, she'll sing to the world.